Welcome to today's Explainer. We're putting a microscope on a dish that honestly causes a massive amount of confusion out there: oxtail. Look, if you've ever stared at a restaurant menu and thought, wait, can I actually order this? You are definitely not alone. Today, we're completely demystifying the halal status of oxtail. We're going to do a step-by-step investigation based directly on Halal Radar's guidelines to build a rock-solid framework so you literally always make the right choice. Let's get right into it.
Okay, here's our roadmap for today's audit. We're going to start with the true source of oxtail, then we'll look at the Islamic slaughter requirement, and after that, we'll uncover some hidden kitchen contamination traps. Then we'll get to the official halal verdict, and finally wrap up with your practical halal action plan.
All right, Section 1, the true source of oxtail. We have to start our investigation at the very beginning, out in the pasture. So let's clear the air right off the bat on what oxtail actually is. I think a lot of us hear the word and immediately picture this massive exotic ox roaming the wilderness, right? Well, the surprising truth is that today, oxtail is literally just the tail of everyday cattle, whether male or female. There are no bizarre creatures involved and no secret ingredients. It's really just standard cut of beef.
And this perfectly highlights the huge contrast between what we naturally assume when we look at a normal cut of beef versus what Islamic dietary law actually requires us to dig into. When most of us see beef, our brain just goes, hey, it looks like regular beef, so it must be halal. But the Islamic requirement, it goes way deeper than the surface. It forces us to focus on the unseen stuff. We're talking about the actual source, the specific method of slaughter, and what's going on behind the closed doors of the kitchen mixing. To really navigate this, we have to run the meat through 3 strict filters. Step 1, verify the animal source. Step 2, verify the slaughter method. And Step 3, verify the kitchen preparation. Because look, just because cattle are normally halal animals, the meat itself only becomes halal if it successfully passes through every single one of these 3 filters. It's kind of like a chain, and if even one link is broken, the permissible status is totally gone. Moving right along to Section 2, the Islamic slaughter requirement. This step shifts our focus completely away from the animal itself and directly onto the butcher.
Now we have to ask the absolute ultimate question. Was the animal actually slaughtered in a halal way? According to our source at Halal Radar, this is hands down the single most critical question of our entire investigation. The tail itself is totally fine, but how that animal lost its life literally dictates everything that follows. So, here's the absolutely crucial point. A cow is halal as an animal, sure, but the meat only becomes halal for us to consume when it's slaughtered strictly according to Islamic requirements. We are talking about proper the biha here, invoking the name of Allah with absolutely no haram processes involved whatsoever. If the animal wasn't Islamically slaughtered, or, and this is super common at standard grocery stores, if the source is totally unknown, then a practicing Muslim shouldn't eat it.
All right, let's look at Section 3, hidden kitchen contamination traps. Pay close attention here because this is exactly where so many of us unknowingly get caught.
We really have to ask, what is hiding in the seasoning and the preparation? Oxtail is incredibly popular all over the world. It's a star in hearty stews, traditional Caribbean dishes, African and Asian recipes, and you'll even see it popping up on fancy luxury menus because it gets unbelievably rich and tender when you slow cook it. But we really need to ask what actually happens the second it goes into the chef's pot.
Just think about what usually goes into a typical oxtail stew. We are frequently talking about wine, beer, non-halal beef stock, Worcestershire sauce, which, by the way, often contains some highly doubtful ingredients, and even pork bacon or pork fat, just to build up that flavor. The sheer volume of cross-contamination risks here is honestly staggering. Literally just one splash of the wrong broth completely ruins an otherwise perfectly sourced, halal slaughtered cut of meat.
And honestly, it goes way beyond just the direct ingredients. Let's say your meat is verified halal and the ingredients are completely clean. Well, sharing cooking surfaces, pots, grills, or frying oils with pork or non-halal meats creates a massive cross-contamination trap. If a restaurant stews your perfectly halal oxtail in the exact same unwashed pot they used for a pork dish earlier that afternoon, boom, it is absolutely no longer permissible. Which brings us to Section 4, the official halal verdict. Having run this popular dish through our 3 strict filters, we can now look at the definitive answer. Here is the official Halal Radar verdict. Oxtail is halal, but only conditionally. It has to be from halal slaughtered cattle and cooked without alcohol, pork, haram stock, or any cross-contamination. What this means in the real world is that restaurant oxtail, supermarket oxtail, and frozen oxtail should honestly be avoided entirely unless the source is explicitly verified. You just cannot rely on assumptions here.
And finally, Section 5, your halal action plan. Let's turn this theological ruling into a step-by-step checklist you can actually use out in the real world. So here are 3 straightforward steps to make sure your grocery shopping and your dining out stay completely permissible. Step 1, buy your raw oxtail directly from a trusted halal butcher. Step 2, if you're at a supermarket, you really need to look for reliable halal certification right there on the packaging. And step 3, when you're dining out, you've got to actively interrogate that restaurant menu. Now, this is a real game changer because it gives you the exact script you need to empower yourself when you're talking to the waitstaff. Whatever you do, do not just ask, is it beef? Because as we've clearly seen today, just spotting the word oxtail on a menu is never, ever enough. Instead, you want to ask these 3 specific questions. Is the oxtail halal certified? Is alcohol or pork used in the recipe? And is it cooked separately from non-halal meat? If the staff hesitates even a little bit, or if the answer is kind of unclear, just skip the dish entirely. You know, this whole mindset applies at home too. If someone serves you homemade oxtail, even family or friends, asking respectfully about the meat source and the ingredients is definitely not being extreme, and it's really not an insult to the host either. Applying this framework is just a necessary protection. It protects your deen, your body, and your family from consuming doubtful food. I really want to highlight this authoritative quote straight from our source material today. At Halal Radar, we do not judge by the name on the plate. We investigate what is behind it. I love this because it perfectly cements that core investigative mindset you should really walk away with today. It's never just about the label, right? It's about the entire journey of the food. So, I'll leave you with this final, provocative thought. The next time you see a rich, perfectly slow-cooked oxtail stew on a menu, will you know exactly which questions to ask before you take a bite? Well, now that you've got this 3-filter framework, you absolutely have the knowledge to navigate any menu with complete confidence. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and remember to always keep asking the right questions.